So speaking of Klipat Noga, which is again the theme of chapter 7, we were speaking about how some traits come to us naturally. For each of us, it's different. Some are kind naturally. Some are maybe more introverts naturally. In a way, if we only follow our natural channels, our natural traits, then we, even if we use them to do mitzvahs, so to speak, we don't really transcend ourselves, and therefore we can't really touch the divine and connect with the divine. And the example that he gave was like animals. Some animals have positive traits, and if the Torah was not given, as we had studied last week, then we would have learned certain traits from certain animals, like modesty from the cat, or respect, right? Respect for another's property from the ant, and so on. But the problem is that, again, if we only stay within our natural realm, then we're really only staying with ourselves. If we're only staying with ourselves, what's the connection with the divine? And Klipat Noga is exactly that, staying with ourselves in the neutral realm, in the natural realm. But the idea is to transform Klipat Noga into a place of holiness, into a realm of holiness. And for that, we sometimes need to transcend ourselves and go against our nature to do good. To go against our nature, even if it's not within my comfort zone. And to go against my nature again, in order for me to connect with Hashem in a transcendent way. So that was, I think, the big idea of last week. Let's continue where you just said, Margaret, the bottom of page 178. Does anyone want to read? Sorry, I should have asked. Anyone?
I will read.
Jordan, thank you. Go for it. Go.
Klipat Noga is an intermediate category between the three completely profane klipot and the category and level of holiness. Thus, it is sometimes absorbed within the three profane klipot, and sometimes it is absorbed and elevated to the category and level of holiness. Note the precise terminology used here. The Tanya does not say that Klipat Noga is an intermediate between the profanity and holiness, but between the three profane klipot and the category and level of holiness. As elaborated earlier, there is no intermediate level between holiness and klipa. A thing is either one or the other. By definition, the other side includes everything that is not of the side of holiness. Klipat Noga is an intermediate level, not because it contains both holy and unholy elements, but only in the sense that the elements in its domain are transferable from one side to the other, namely the proper preparation and well-aimed action. Things that are in the domain of Klipat Noga can be elevated to the category and level of holiness. The difference between Klipat Noga and the three profane klipot lies in the potential of those elements that are in the province of Klipat Noga to be rectified by man, and thus redirected and transferred to the province of holiness, whereas those things that are of the three profane klipot are off limits to such efforts on our part and are entirely rectifiable.
Right. Okay. So really what we're saying is that Klipat Noga either belongs to one or another. It doesn't stand its own grounds. So it either belongs to the three impure klipot, how does he call it? Three profane klipot, or it belongs to the holiness, and really depends on us. So it's not a realm in and of its own. The question, I believe, is what is the goal? What is the goal of the Klipat Noga? What is the goal of my activity right now? My activity may be categorized as neutral, but what's the goal of the activity? And the goal of the activity will either make it impure or make it pure. And it's not just your personal goal, but it's also the activity's goal itself. In other words, what's the bottom line? What will come out of this? Rabbi Steins would often say, and I think I've said this many times before, that the most important question, I once asked him, what is the most important question of life? And he said that the most important question of life is azma, and then what? What comes out of this? And that's true for the big milestones of life. You become bar mitzvah. Can you maintain your commitment to Judaism after your bar mitzvah? You get a degree at university. Can you maintain that level of study and at the same time that level of commitment that you had in order to achieve this degree? But it's not just a big, same with marriage. You get married, can you maintain your marriage? So, but it's not just the big milestones. It's also the small little acts. So if I give tzedakah, can I continue to do that every day, even if it's just a penny a day? Because to fly into moments of feeling good, of doing good even, that's easy. But how about your commitment? What's the goal of this mitzvah? Is it to give birth to another mitzvah? Is it to ensure that you now have a new beautiful order of things and mitzvahs to do, and that you'll commit to them, to doing them consistently? So that I think is the big question, and it's the big question because it's exactly what turns Klipat Noga into holiness. Otherwise, if it's just a feel-good thing, like we said, if it's just part of my nature and I love doing this anyhow, whether it's connected to God or not, whether it has a mitzvah, whether I care about the fact that I'm doing this mitzvah or not, or whether it's going to create some type of continuity or not, then it goes to the three profane klipot, and there's really no divinity involved here. I'm not committing to something greater than myself. I'm committing only to myself. If I'm committing only to myself, then there's nothing really holy in this. It's just me and myself and my good feelings and my little actions and my natural self. And in a way, I think we have to keep in mind what Rabbi Stein said before, that sometimes even good actions can fall into the realm of the profane klipot. I'll give you an example, straight fresh from yesterday's portion, because this is exactly what we're speaking about. And I know the Lubavitcher Rebbe, blessed memory, would shout when he would mention this, just shout out of pain. But we see this with Joseph. Joseph, who his brothers hated him, and they of course plotted to assassinate him, right? We know the story. So he's coming from afar, and they said, okay, now is the time, we're going to kidnap him and kill him. Reuven, who's the firstborn, who knows that he will be blamed, because at the end of the day, the firstborn is the one who's supposed to be responsible for the rest of the brothers, for the actions of the brothers. So he says to his brothers, no, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him into a pit. Don't kill him right now. Throw him into a pit. Why did he offer that? Because he had a plan in mind. His plan was that we'll throw him into a pit, and then the brothers will forget about Joseph. They'll leave, and Reuven will come back to the pit and take Joseph out. And like this, Joseph will remain alive. Now, they listened to him. They threw him into a pit, and Reuven, in the meantime, doesn't want to be with his brothers. He wants to have a good excuse, right? That he came back to the pit and his brothers weren't there. He wants to separate himself from his brothers. He's hoping that his brothers leave as soon as possible so that he can go back and pull Joseph out of the pit. So where does he go in the meantime? Rashi tells us, and it's the words of the Talmud, Rashi tells us that Reuven, after they threw him into a pit, Reuven went aside and he went to pray and do teshuvah for previous wrongdoings that he did, and he even fasted. Now, when he came back to the pit, Reuven wasn't there. He didn't know what had happened to him. It sold him to slavery, but he didn't know, he wasn't there. And then he says to himself, oh my gosh, the child isn't here. Well, what am I going to do with myself? I'm going to be held responsible. Now, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would take the story, but again, it speaks to this effect right here. And he would apply it to our very day and age. How so? And he would say some people are involved in teshuvah, just like Reuven was, in fasting, in praying all day long, in studying Torah all day long. But our brothers and sisters are drowning in the pit of assimilation. And when your brother and your sister are drowning in the pit of assimilation, when they're in trouble, there is no room for teshuvah. There is no room for tefillah. It might be a noble thing, but your brother is dying in a pit. Go and save him. What are you thinking? And that's how we can see that sometimes really teshuvah might be the most noble act, but there's no room for it. Your brother is dying. Go and save him. He's in a pit. Go and pull him out. So when we do things just because we feel like it and it's a good feel-good thing and I'm going to do teshuvah, we have to ask the question, what's the goal? Is it the goal just to soothe myself and to kill time until my brothers leave so that I can go pull Joseph out of the pit? What's the goal? If the goal is really to do that which Hashem wants of me, then fine, good. But if it's a goal, it's just because I have my plan and I have my way of thinking, and it's got nothing to do with God. I not only that, but I don't have the guts to stand up for God. Like Reuven didn't have the guts to stand up for God and say, this is wrong. Then there's no room for your teshuvah. There's no room for your tefillah. There's no room for any of that. So yeah, we see again that even good actions can fall into the realm of the three profane klipot because they have no divine goal. They have no ability to pull yourself out of yourself for something greater than you. And that I think is, by the way, it's a question we have to pose ourselves every day, maybe many times a day before we do any action. And certainly the good actions too, not just any neutral action, but the good actions too. What's the goal? And if it's only for me and for myself, then maybe we should rethink that action. But that's what the Tanya is saying here. I want to open this up. I feel like I'm speaking too much. Any comments? Diana, you have a different background. No, I can't hear you. No, you still mute. Okay.
Audio. Okay,
Oh,
now
there
you
you
can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the process of moving, and what
Oh,
you're
that's-
making me think about is I'm really downsizing, and
Okay.
who I've been calling and giving things to in terms of charity, like Gesher or this and that, and it's because I love the people in there and I like what they do. And I'm trying to decide, as you've been speaking, am I doing this because it makes me feel good, or am I doing this for God? And it's made me thinking. You probably picked up on that, even though the background is different. I'll be out of here by the 15th. So, but I'm still a member and I'm not leaving.
I know. You'll never leave. But it should be Mashaneh Makom, Mashaneh Mazal, as they say, that your move should bring you enhanced mazel.
In fact, your wife is coming tomorrow and you're going to get some stuff too.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But what would you call that? What
Thank
would you call what I'm talking about?
From my standpoint, letting my wife do whatever she wants, I think that's pretty.
No, I don't mean that. I mean.
I'm joking. I know.
Yeah,
I know. Look, it's a good question. I mean, because at the end of the day, fine. So you're giving things, and it makes you feel good. Which, by the way, every mitzvah should make you feel good.
Mhm.
Why? Because the soul knows that it's fulfilling a purpose. So the soul has a good feeling,
Mhm.
and that's just fine. But again, the question is even when you give tzedakah, and I'm sure it's not the case with you, Diana, but when you give tzedakah and when you giving away your things, do you have in mind the other, or do you have in mind just your good feeling?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So then you're transcending yourself, and that's where the Klipat Noga is transformed into holiness. You know, some people do it just for themselves, and that's where it's wrong. Now, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. That's not where it's going. Yeah, we're going to the heart of Klipat Noga, so he has to dissect it like, you know, like a lab doctor, so to speak, or lab professor. He has to dissect the frog or dissect here the Klipat Noga, and therefore we're speaking about. But it doesn't mean that it should stop you from doing a mitzvah, and that he already spoke about previously. That even if you're doing it just selfishly, at the end of the day, the poor person will have money that he didn't have before to provide for himself and his family. So do it anyway. And hopefully, mitoch shelo lishma, as we've said before, ba lishma, as the Talmud says, that from doing things not for God's sake, you'll eventually train your heart to do it more and more and more until it will be for God's sake. But still, if we had to dissect Klipat Noga, we have to remember that it's not causing any transcendence, any really divine connection if we're doing things only for ourselves. You know, the word mitzvah is, as we've mentioned, means connection. And that means connection really because we are connecting to God. If we're only connecting to ourselves, then there's no connection. I'm already connected to myself. I don't have to create a connection. Mitzvah comes from the word savta, or tzevet. It means again connection. So who am I connecting to? If I'm only connecting to myself, there's no connection. There's no God there that I'm connecting to, because it's for me. But the second I'm able to connect to that which is greater than me, then there's a mitzvah. Then there's a connection. So that's the big idea. Okay,
Sometimes you get both. Like
sometimes you get both, and that's fine.
When I gave to the Gesher people, and they need everything, and yet some of the kids wrote me back notes of what they took, what they have, and what they like. So I think I got both of it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And both of it doesn't hurt, does it?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. Look, one of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 100. 100 or 101. Mizmor LeTodah, we say it every single morning after Baruch Shamar. And let me see. I'm going to pull it out right here from Rabbi Stein says Psalm, and it has these beautiful drawings in his book. So this Psalm, I'm pointing it out because it speaks to the words that we're studying here. So it's Psalm 100. So the verse goes like this. Deu ki Hashem hu Elohim u'asanu velo anachnu. King David is calling upon us, the words of the book of Psalms, chapter 100, verse 3, calls upon us to know that the Lord is God. He made us, velo anachnu, and we belong to him. Now, in some books, you'll see that velo anachnu, which means, anachnu means we, velo means to him, we belong to him. Velo is written not just with, not lamed vav, which means to him, but lamed aleph, velo anachnu, means we are not to him. So this verse that sounds the same can be read really in two separate ways. Know that the Lord is God, he made us, and we belong to him. Or, again, know that God, the Lord is our God, he made us, and we do not belong to him. Lo with a vav or lo with an aleph. Now, it can go both ways. Every action of life can go both ways. We could decide that this action belongs to him, and then it's lo, lamed vav. Or if it's only ego-based, self-based, and self-oriented, then it's lo anachnu, and we do not belong to it. The choice is in our hands. But we have to remember, he made us. So where's the reciprocation here? If we do not belong to him? Hu asanu, he made us. Now, he expects a connection. He made us. He wants a relationship. But we say, no, I'm doing this for myself. Who cares about God? Even if it's good things again. And then it's lo, lamed aleph. We are not to him. But the goal is to write it the way and to behave and to act the way it is written in most book of Psalms, including here. Rabbi Shtel says book of Psalm with his interpretation and commentary is lo anachnu. We really belong to him. God demands a relationship. He made us, and let's belong to him. Let's show that all of our actions belong to him. Or as King Solomon puts it elsewhere, that b'chol derachecha darehu, in all your pathways, know him or acknowledge him. That's the idea. You know, I once gave the example of, just stayed with me, of, excuse the repetition, but again, it fits, so why not? My little son, Asher, who you know, is 4 years old today, and it's a ball of energy. He certainly keeps us on our toes, and he wakes up sometimes early in the morning. I remember him waking up a few months ago at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he was hungry. Abba, I'm hungry. So I gave him a little toast. And, you know, he's there half asleep, and he's eating his toast, and he's cranky. And I want a conversation with him. So I want to connect. 4 o'clock in the morning, am I going to connect with him? So I tell him, hey, Asher, can I please have a little bit of your toast? He says, no. I said, please, just a little bit. Anyway, after like the third time I'm asking him, he takes a little crumb from the corner of his bread and he gives it to me. He says, yeah, begrudgingly. And I said to myself, you see, that's sometimes a relationship with God. God gave us, I could have told my son, hey, excuse me, this is my bread. I bought it for you. It's my house, my bread. Hu asanu. He gave us everything. He made us. And then he says, hey, I want a relationship with you. And we say, no, leave me alone. It's my bread. It's my life, my game. And then God asks us again, so we give him a little crumb. Just leave me alone. But that's not the relationship God wants. So Klipat Noga must therefore be elevated to that which is greater than ourselves. Hu asanu velo anachnu. We belong to him. He made us. We belong to him, and our actions should reflect that.